Hello, good evening. This is me, Preeti Chaudhary here, and today is Thursday, so here we are with yet another episode of Rainbow Professionals. Now, before we start with the evening, there are a few points that I would like to make and for you to please pay attention on. Kindly remember, this is your session. So, all kinds of questions and comments are welcome in the comment section of this live session. Please make sure that you keep on writing, keep on encouraging us, showing us your love by liking, sharing, and commenting on this live stream. Do ask any questions that have been going around in your mind, but you've never really asked about in terms of anything about allyship or the challenges or the trials and tribulations or the success stories or whatever comes to your mind. With that, let me quickly run you through the lineup that we have lined up for you for this week with LinkedIn Local India. So it's a combination of a lot of activities. Today is Thursday, so here we are with our episode of Rainbow Professionals via LinkedIn Live. Tomorrow, Friday, we have a Community Connect happening at 7 p.m., wherein we talk about everything that has happened so far and our plans for the rest of June going into early July. So please save the date rather, that's tomorrow, and the time 7 p.m. On the Saturday, we have a very interesting and important, I would say, session lined up for the veteran community. It's a corporate veteran integration discussion or talk that we are having here again via LinkedIn Live, 7 p.m. also on the Saturday. So, veteran community, here is your notice couple of days in advance. Please make yourself available 7 o'clock onwards for about 60 to 75 minutes. We have three stalwarts veterans, literally and figuratively, because two of them are veterans of the corporate industry. One of them being Mr. Raj Gupta, who's the general manager of TCS, and another one being Mr. Samar Singh Shekhawat, who is an independent consultant and coach right now, ex UBS and ex a lot of stuff. And the third is an actual veteran, so Abraham Cherian from the Muthoot Group. There will be talks around career transition in terms of the don'ts rather than the do's, how to go about it, how to approach it, how to establish your networks, connects with the corporates and HR community, how to prepare yourself, and so on and so forth. So that is all the activities lined up for you for the rest of this week. With that, I think I'm safe to say a very warm welcome to one and all, anybody and everybody that's watching this session of PC Live via LinkedIn Live featuring Rainbow Professionals. And my guest today is Kusuma. Let me welcome her into the stream, and then we'll get on started with this evening. Hi,
Thank
Kusuma.
you.
How are
Hello,
you this
Preeti. How are
evening?
you?
I'm
I'm
good,
good. I'm
thank
good.
you.
How are you?
Lovely. So, busy day at work or work from home, or how is it? What's going?
Working from home, but yet it's been really busy. Today has been very busy. Yeah.
Lovely. So, thank you so much for joining me here today on such an important topic to talk about. All the professionals from the rainbow community, and indeed a very inspiring and different kind of environment that we are um, bringing in so much knowledge and inspiration to us. So, thank you once again and welcome to you. I would basically like to have a conversation with you depending upon your comfort level and in terms of however much candid or not candid you want to be. So with that, I want to set the tone for this conversation. This entails your personal and professional life. So basically, I'm going to start from right at the very beginning, from your family. In terms of, please tell us a little bit about your background, your parents, siblings, where are you from, and how was growing up, and so on and so forth. Kusuma?
Great. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having me here on LinkedIn Local. And also, it's really great that in such unprecedented times, we are still looking at doing something or the other in the June Pride month and having all of us talk about inclusivity and diversity and inclusion and things like that. So I think it's very important that we keep on doing it no matter what the odds are. So thank you for that. and I'm really excited to be part of today's Rainbow Professional episode. And thank you. So let me start with my introduction. So I'm Kusuma Krishna. My preferred pronouns are she and hers. And currently, I work as a program manager for a program called Intuit Circles and also an academia in the organization called Intuit from Bangalore. So I'm a true Bangalorean, born and raised in Bangalore, and I did my engineering and then went on to do an MBA in CMRIT. And then I also joined. My first job was in First Source. I started taking calls there. So from then on, I went on to do a couple of courses, and then I went to Xerox, and then I joined IBM. I served there for about 5 years, and then I moved on to Ola, which was a startup. And I mean, from a service-based company like an IBM, which is an enterprise, I moved into a startup. So the lot of enriched experience I got, and then from then on, I moved on to Intuit. So I come from a family of four. I have two siblings. Both of them are younger than me. I have a younger sister who's married and a younger brother who's working. And I have a niece as well. So that's about my family. And so in my growing up years in Bangalore, a typical Kannadiga family, wherein my mother wouldn't even let me watch anything that is English, like even MTV we were not allowed to watch till I was in 10th standard and things like that. So that was kind of household where I grew up, right? So obviously there was absolutely no access to something which would provide me information about homosexuality, or even there's something called homosexuality. I did not really know that during my teenage or growing up years, right? So that was the kind of household that I grew up. And
Lovely.
yes, sorry.
Sorry, no, carry on. I was just saying, nice. Yeah, please carry on.
Yeah. So while I was in high school, all my school friends used to, I mean, started having crushes. They used to like boys and things like that. And then here I was. I never felt or resonated with the feelings that my friends would usually share with me, right? And then I always used to like girls even back then, but then I thought that probably it's just a phase, or maybe it's a friendly feeling, and then maybe I don't really like guys as a whole and things like that. So there was a lot of confusion, a lot of questioning. All of this used to happen, but there's nobody to
Hold
talk
on,
to.
hold on to that thought. I was just quickly take you back to your school days in terms of you were studying and you were self discovering yourself and you were growing up, young girl to a teenager. How was it like being in that environment? Was it a smooth ride? Was it ups and downs, topsy turvy? What was going on in school? Did you have a nice friend circle support? What about that? Please tell us a little bit about that,
Yeah,
Kusuma.
definitely. Yeah. So initially I had a really cool school gang till I was getting into high school. That's when I started questioning about my sexuality. Right. Till then, I had a solid group, solid gang where I could discuss everything and anything with them, from little tiny things as well, like all of us do. And I was a little tomboyish even back then. But then children don't really think about all of this, right? Until we come to high school, that's when it really got difficult, because that is when I started getting all of these feelings, and then there was nobody to share. And I always used to think, like, what if somebody finds this out? Somebody goes and tells my parents, or will I be bullied in the school, or how is it going to be? Right, if somebody finds this out, and there is no way to find out if it is right or wrong and what exactly it is as well. There are no books that talk about this. There were no shows like this. There was no internet access where you could like just go Google up and then read and then understand. And your school teachers or your parents were also at that point in time not very open minded where you could discuss all of this, right? So definitely, so there is this nerve breaking experience of, like, there is something and you're hiding like a really big secret, and you can't really come out or discuss about this to anybody. And there's this constant fear of, like, what if somebody really finds out? What's going to happen then? So you always try to tag along with what is going on. You try to kind of follow the lead of, follow the herd. What everybody is doing, you try to do it. You kind of try to fake, or try to just be part of the gang and things like that. So I did
Kusuma,
a lot of it. Yeah.
Kusuma, that brings me to again a very important question. Here there was all this conflict going on, and there was an internal turmoil, as well as you were not too sure whether you were going to be accepted or what is going to happen. Does any incident stand out to you, particularly from this phase of your life, that sort of helped you either go on the either side, either decide, okay, this is what it is, and I'm not scared, and this is what I'm going to do, or the other way and say, well, no, this is not worth it. Does anything stand out to you from that time, please, Kusuma?
The acceptance part never really struck me. Like I knew back when I was in 10th standard, there was this movie that came out called Fire, 10th or maybe sometime in high school, and I saw in the newspapers and everywhere in the news that the theaters have been people are throwing stones at theaters, tearing off posters and things like that. So that really scared me. So basically they're doing all of this protest because it's a story about a girl falling in love with another girl. So I knew that if somebody is gonna get to know what I am thinking, so I'm gonna get in trouble too. So acceptance was like nowhere near. That thought never really even came into my head. I was just how to hide this and how to get through this. Maybe this is a phase, and I for the longest time I used to think like there's something terribly wrong with me, and I used to feel so guilty about all of it. And I used to feel like if my parents find out they're such good parents, they're going to be so disappointed about me and things like that. So that pulled me back. My grades went down. I used to be like a good student, and then my averages fell down flat during my high school. I couldn't study, I couldn't focus, and slowly I started losing friends also, because there's this constant anger that you're trying to hide yourself and things like that, right? So the acceptance or thinking of what's going to happen next came much later. This was the
Right.
time where I was just trying to hide myself, closet myself so tight, and try to be so hidden that nobody really finds it out. So trying to hide the secret. So
Right.
that was the high school part of it. Only when I
So,
entered the college I found, sorry.
okay, no, I was just going to say, so this angst sort of went on right from, say, when you discovered yourself, right up to your year 12, right? So, pretty much most of your teenage years, I would say from 13 till about 18 or so.
I
And
think
you must have
16,
found
yeah.
it, yeah,
Yeah.
16 to 18. So, you must have found it really difficult to sort of coexist in this kind of a turmoil,
Definitely.
So, how did you pull yourself together? How did you gather yourself? Were you confiding in someone, anyone at all, or no, just taking the brunt on yourself? What did you do?
I, I did not really tell all of this to anybody at all. I just tried to hide it all together until I found one of these girls who was staying in the same colony. She kind of reciprocated the same sort of feelings that I had towards her, and then I think when I was around 16, 17, that's when I met her, and when we talked more about each other. So somehow she brought down her walls, and I just kind of followed the lead as well. And then that's when we started sharing our feelings. And then she was my very first girlfriend, if I can talk about that. So that's when I thought, I don't know what it is, but then it doesn't feel wrong. But then if somebody comes to know, we are going to be in trouble. That's all I knew in my college days, like 2 to 3 years. That's all I knew. Nobody
Mhm.
should know. We should hide it all. We don't know what it is, but I feel like this feels like love. Everybody talks about love. They have boyfriends, and whatever they do, we used to do the same things, but we did not really know what it is all about. We did not even know that there's a word called homosexuality. So that's where we were at. And then when I was in I was entering my graduation, like into degree. That's when there was something that happened at home that kind of pushed me into marriage. My father was on his deathbed, so I had to get married. So that happened, and then again I thought, okay, this is just a phase. Maybe I'll be fine after some time. Once I'm married, uh, all of this will be a good story that we can talk about, high school story or something, and I'll be fine. That's what I thought. Okay, and then I started living with my husband, but then however that did not really work out, and after a point in time that fell apart as well, as expected. So when I was in the second year of my college, degree college, that is when I was sitting on a terrace, and then I put my hands on one of my friend's shoulder. She told me, hey, don't do that, people will think we are lesbians. And I'm like, I was a lesbian. I was in a relationship also with this girl, but then I did not know that I was a lesbian. So like I asked her what's a lesbian. So then she tells me like, there's an English TV show called Friends. Over there, a girl falls in love with a girl. They are called lesbians. I'm like, wow, there's something like that. Is that true? That's when I went out, and then I started doing this internet research. Back then, we did not really have laptops or computers at home, right? We used to go to these internet cafes, and this is I'm talking about like early 2000.
Mhm.
So I went out and then I did hours of internet cafe search on what is the lesbian. I couldn't even spell it right, but then somehow I got it eventually. Right? So I read all about it and I figured out that there's this whole world out there wherein there are many countries where it is accepted and they are saying that this is not any kind of mental issue. There's absolutely nothing wrong with these people. It's just their choice to be with the same gender. Just like, somebody has black hair, somebody has brown hair, somebody likes apples, somebody likes oranges. So it's just that. It's just another variety maybe. And that's just how they are. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. So learning about this kind of liberated me to such an extent that that was the first time I kind of broke down. I mean, coming out to myself, this whole journey. So I think this was coming out to myself first of all. That was the most toughest or most difficult part of journey for me. So when that happened, I knew that I was like a new person altogether, right? So when this happened, there was a lot of possibilities. There was a lot of opportunities where I could actually probably live the life the way that I want. Because there are so many people who are outside of this country who are living very respectable lives. They are married, they have kids. I was blown away, and then I was so happy. Then I came back and then I told my girlfriend at that point in time, and then I said like, okay, so one thing is for sure that we are not wrong, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with us. We are completely okay. We are just like anybody else. So what we have to do, we can't live in this country uh, the same way, right? Because it's very dangerous over here. If anybody finds out, it's still dangerous. We know,
Sure.
but then
So,
people don't. Mhm.
yeah, that's correct. Okay, so you came out to yourself and you were comfortable in your skin, then in your thoughts, in your whatever was going through inside of you, you were okay with that, right? So let me just take 10 seconds here to remind anybody and everybody who's watching and listening. Please let those questions and comments keep coming in into the comment section of this LinkedIn Live of Rainbow Professionals featuring Kusuma. And my question again back to you, Kusuma, is after coming out to yourself, then what was the next step? Did you come out to your family? How did that go with your parents? Would you
Not
mind sharing a little bit with us, please, Kusuma?
definitely, definitely. So when I came out to myself, again, like I said, I knew that there's nothing wrong with me, but all of this still happens in Western countries and not in India. Even then, if anybody finds out what I am feeling and what I am going to do or things like that, I will still be in trouble. So I was pretty sure of that as well. And how do I fight? They're my own people. And then when I read up, I also knew about the Section 377, which kind of criminalizes same-sex, right? The activity. So though it's just the activity that it criminalizes and not people with different sexual orientation, basically, you don't really know how it all works. Like I was just say 21 or 22, there was nobody to talk and then get clarity around it. So what I got from that is, if you're a homosexual, then you're illegal in this country. So that's all I got at that point in time. So that's when I thought, like, okay, this country is no place for me. I have to just finish my graduation, do an MS, and then go outside, and then probably I can start my life over there. But then going through the divorce, and I had to like be the earning member of the family, uh, and there's a family behind. You can't really leave your responsibilities. So I was kind of stuck. Then I chose to like continue be here. Let's see what we can do and things like that. So I did that, and then I started working. But meanwhile, I mean, all of this traumatic experience that we've been having from so many years, and carrying so much shame or pain and fear and all of it, had strained our relationship so much that I we both really broke up at the end of it, and then we parted ways. So that was pretty much like how my school and college went. So when I started working, even in my very first job, so if you're somebody illegal, you will, there's a good chance that you will lose your job, right? That's one thing. And another one would be like, you will be discriminated. There are no laws around it. There are no policies around discrimination against LGBT community. Nothing of that sort. Those were all unheard of at that point in time. None of these corporations, organizations spoke about it because they all thought like, Section 377, it's illegal. It was very simple for them. So we don't even want to talk about it. That's how it was back then. So obviously, I never really came out. So I spent some time in my first organization, second organization, trying to lie again and then fit in. So I mean, think about it. All these organizations spend so much on kind of team building activities. They want to keep the team together. They want to build this team so that they are supporting each other in terms of like learning or educating each other and then working together. That's how the productivity increases and eventually company gets benefited, and also employees feel safe at work and bringing their whole self to work, right? I mean, though we say that organizations are not really the places where we talk about personal lives, you do talk about personal lives all the time, right? So you do talk about your husband, your kid, and if you're getting married, all of it, right? And you're about 24, 25. It's obvious that everybody asks you about like when are you getting married? Do you have a boyfriend? All of these questions pop up, and then you keep lying. And how long can you lie all the time? That there is always this person that you're trying to go and meet. There are always these trips that you're having, and you can't really like talk too much about it. And when you're hiding again, you're not bringing your whole self to work. Like let's say, I mean, I talk about this all the time. Like you come back from a weekend and everybody talks about like I went out for a movie with my girlfriend and I took my kid to the Lal Bagh or Kaban Park or whatever. And then when they ask me what did you do, I had to like think twice and then probably lie. And also like when we say like I went out with this friend of mine too many times, like you should really stop hanging out with your friends and then start probably dating or looking for a marriage and things like that, right? So basically you're not really out yourself. And then when your partner is sick, I mean, think about this. uh,
Yeah.
if your husband is sick, your manager doesn't think twice to give you a leave. But then if you say my friend is sick and then I need a leave, that's not something that is like very common,
Yeah.
right? And that's not a priority that they really like expect from you. So yeah, so obviously, so all of these challenges
So
that
sure. So tell me something. This was organization one and two from memory, if I remember correctly. Um, what was it then? Where was it that it actually started happening for you at work in terms of that fear from your mind started disappearing? You started feeling more comfortable, more included. When did that happen? And run us through your professional journey also a little bit in terms of, again, all these challenges, of maybe being bullied, discriminated, then comfort level, all of that. So couple of companies you did not feel home at all. Then what, Kusuma?
yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't say that I did not really feel home at all per se,
Mm-hmm.
because they were colleagues. I had really good friends. I could talk to them about everything else, but just about this. So I'm still not my whole self at work, right? And I still have difficulties in getting leaves if I have to address to the relationship issues or partner issues. That's not the same for others, right? I mean, if you're married, there's no question. Like if you're married, you're having a kid and all of it, it's all taken care of. So it's not the same way for us, because we've been lying all the time. So forced to. Uh, that's when I thought, like, this is not really happening. And then how long will I keep lying? This is not wrong. I'm not doing anything wrong. And why should I even hide and keep lying about it? And why do I feel this way? Because I fear that if somebody finds out, there's a good chance that I'll be thrown out, right? So I should find an organization which is supportive of LGBT community. That's when I read few things about IBM. They were very vocal and they were very visible in being diverse and an inclusive organization, and they spoke widely about all the things that they were doing, the LGBT ally trainings that they were giving to their employees and things like that. I read it in one of those newspapers, and like okay, so next time when I find a job, I should definitely go to an organization which says, at least, which has some sort of policies wherein I know that I'll at least not be thrown out, no matter what happens, at least not for this reason. So
Yeah.
that's when I had two offers in my hand. One was IBM and another was from a different organization which paid a little bit higher than what I would get in IBM, but I still chose to go to IBM because I thought, like, this is properly a ray of hope where I can be myself. So even then, when I started in my very first on my very first day, where you have this orientation day, there was this 15-minute session which spoke about, like, we do not tolerate any kind of discrimination or even comments, homophobic comments. We do not tolerate it. We take it very seriously and things like that. That gave me so much of boost, and then trust towards the company, the trust factor. And also you suddenly start becoming loyal, right? I mean, because there nobody really safeguarded your rights for you so far, and then this organization which talks about all of this, then you start feeling for it. And then so yeah, but then, however, these are still policies at the higher level, somewhere the
Right.
leadership speaks about. You never know how much of these values have really trickled down to every single employee. And at the entry level, middle management level, how are they? Do they really resonate with these values? You don't really know. That you only find out when you are in the organization for the longest time. So this happened, like, I was testing waters, and that went on for about 1 2 until the third year, actually. So for 2 3 years I was still testing waters, trying to figure out, find my way, and try to slightly open up to a couple of the colleagues. So I would drop hints, I would talk about new movies, or some of these Hollywood stars who are homosexual, who are from LGBT community and things like that. So that's when I found out, like, there are few people who are completely okay with this and then open-minded, and that's when I slowly opened up to like 2 3 4 people, and kind of build an ally or a community who can kind of guard me, or probably support me if there is anything as such that is happening. That is how I slowly came out, and eventually I went and joined this employee resource group. And there was this very first event that happened, and the couple of co-leads were so supportive of me, and they've been still they've been supporting me. We are still in touch,
Mm-hmm.
and they told me, like, you don't really have to worry about any of these things that you've been always worried or had this fear about. You can be yourself, and things like that. So I started coming out, I started sharing my journey, I started talking to more people, and it really empowered me, and I got so much confidence, and my self-worth, all of this kind of like increase. I started looking at myself as a different person altogether, right? So that happened, and then we, then I also did a lot of events with ERG, and then that was the first time that I think I held a mic and really talked about my journey,
Lovely.
and it
So,
was
hang on, hold on to that for a second again, because this sort of brings me to a very important sort of aspect of, contributing to the community in terms of whether you're from it or not from it, ally and allyship. Being an ally myself, I understand what it takes and what one can do in terms of standing up and being a voice and lending support, voice, comfort, whatever it is. So, for the benefit of everybody that's listening and watching us today, please, can you just help us understand what is this allyship all about? How can one be an ally? And how do organizations? So while you were in IBM, and a friend Tony Tanisella, he's in the IBM in the top leadership in the US. A
right.
very great guy, from the community again, very vocal and out there, full of support and everything else. So hats off to him and IBM for that matter. So coming back to the question, just run us through, please, what it takes to be an ally and allyship, and then talk to us about, so you joined the employee resource group in IBM, and then you probably left and transitioned to a few other companies, and your journey has always been with diverse and inclusive companies, including your current employer into it, because I know for a fact they are a diverse and inclusive, a safe space and a safe environment, and a safe and also an ally organization. So, yeah, please tell us a little bit about ally and allyship, and run us through some of those nuances, so that if anybody is listening to us and watching us today, they can stand up and raise their hands to be an ally, because it takes a village actually to do or make
True.
any difference at all. All yours, Kusuma.
Completely agree. So an ally is somebody who kind of stands up in support, or like who understands the nuances, or even if you don't understand the nuances of what is being an LGBT and things like that, you're somebody who supports a person to be himself at work, and then you create a safe workspace for a person where he can really come out, or even if not come out, at least who can look at you for support in order to strike a conversations, or probably share any of these worries, or anything that's bothering them at the workplace, any kind of discrimination that's happening, or homophobic comments, or microaggressions that are shown, or any such things. If they can come out and then speak to you about it, and you can support them in any form, then you are an ally. And in order to be an ally, you have to be the intent needs to be like really strong, and then you need to be very vocal about it, very visible about it, like wearing rainbow lanyards, or having a badge, or probably putting something on your desk. And in today's virtual world, probably where you're sharing your file pictures, maybe frame it in rainbow or something, wherein you're visible, like maybe you're an ally, but then you never really speak about it. You're pretty open minded, but nobody really knows about it, right? They will only know that you are an ally and come to you when you are quite vocal and visible about it. And also in your conversations, right? When you're using the gender neutral pronouns, or when you ask somebody, like what are your preferred pronouns, that is when somebody will get to know, like you are somebody who are pretty aware of it, and then you are an ally and going to support us. And every organization pretty much provides ally trainings. Even if it's not provided in your organization, you can definitely go up and read. There are plethora of this plethora of information about being an ally and things like that. And when somebody comes out to you, or even strikes a conversation anywhere around it, I mean, first reaction of yours should be like you should probably thank them, like, for coming out to you, because it means that they really really trusted you. So it really does. It takes a lot of courage to go and confess, and then talk about all of this in today's life. I mean, yes, Section 377 has been struck down. We are not criminals anymore, and all of it is there. But still, we are still, there's far way to go for us to be a really open society where the social stigma kind of really dies down. So, being a strong ally, you can empower these people in your organization. And also, whenever you see anybody kind of trying to, let's say, you see anybody cracking any of these typical Karan Johar jokes and things like that, you stand up for them and then just say that, hey, this is not cool. You can't really say that. That's really very important. Probably I can give an anecdote for that matter. So when I was in IBM, one of the guys in our team, who was a little, I mean, his voice was a little squeaky, was a little uh, effeminate. Then people used to think that he's gay. I mean, they just assume that he's probably gay. His manager kind of cracked a joke on him, some Karan Johar joke, and people around laughed. Okay, and then I said that this is not really cool. You should not be saying that, and you're being a manager, and this is really not cool because. And then he said, like, he doesn't really mind. He's okay. Then I said that there could be other people around who could be from LGBT community, and you're pushing them into the closet forever. They're never going to speak about it now. They're like, no, there's nobody like that. He said that. Then I did tell him, like, you realize that every 10% of population anywhere could be LGBT community. That's as per the statistics. So you never know. They could be hidden, or they could be closeted. So don't take it for granted and then just think like there's nobody like that here. So most of the organizations also think like, we don't have any LGBT people in our organization. When we have one, then we'll think about it. So that's not how it works. And after 2 years, after we both left the organization, that guy called me and told me that he was a trans man. So he's gone through the SRS surgery a couple of years ago, and he's a trans man, and I could never tell, and that was a shocker for me. So that day I did not really know, and I just stood up for him, and then that was a shocker for me. And I was a very loud Pride Network member back then in IBM, and he did not even come out to me. Think about, he knew that I was a lesbian, and he did not come out to me. So think about that. So there are many people like this, and being an ally and standing up for them at every in every instance that's possible for you, and then being there during any of these pride activities that happens, and posting things about it, reading up about it, and then sharing it with your friends and families and spreading awareness, that will make you a strong ally. Yeah.
Lovely. That is so insightful because I know, there is information available, but until unless you hear it out from someone else, it's not so crystal clear. Because how do you, sift from tons and tons and tons of stuff out there, and then sometimes you end up getting more confused than informed, actually. So that was
Totally.
absolutely spot on. Thank you so much for that. So coming back to, so professionally you're out in the open and all of that has happened, but what was happening at home? What was the reactions like? And your parents, your sister and brother, eventually did they come around? And how is it now? Everything is
Yeah.
okay at home?
Sure. So basically, like I said, I came out the very first time in IBM, and the trigger for me to come out in IBM was basically, there was this mail that came out like, you can enroll your same-sex partner for insurance benefits. So at that point in time, I felt like, the whole country tells me that this is illegal or you're abnormal, and I can't talk about it to parents. My friends don't really understand. My organization kind of validated my relationship that day, right? So okay, I'm for real. I mean, not saying that everybody needs to look out for a validation. Some people are just comfortable with what they are, and they're okay. They don't really need anybody to validate. But then, but that personally, it made me feel like, validated, and that's when I came out in the organization also strongly, and went ahead and joined the ERG. And only after that I started opening up in the family as well. After opening up in the organization, usually people open up to family and then they come out outside in the world, but it was kind of backtracking for me. And then I came out to my siblings. My brother kind of knew it even in my school days, but we just did not really talk about it. And that's when I started telling my mom, my mother, that I probably may like girls. And after my sister got married, my mom started pestering me to get married again. And then I started telling her, but she wouldn't even let me finish the sentence. Like if I were trying to say like, I don't like men, I probably, she would cut me off right there, and she would never listen to me. And probably after 3 to 4 years, finally she sat me down and said, okay, I'm going to take you to a psychiatrist, and if he says if everything is okay with you, then I'll let you go scot free, and I won't trouble you anymore. I mean, she did not say I'll accept you. She said like, I'll not trouble you anymore for marriage. So I said like, okay, that's a good deal too.
Oh, I thought for a second there that she was going to take you to get you cured or whatever. At times that also happens. So for there, I got a little bit of jolt, thinking that that is what was happening to you. But
Uh,
okay, so yeah, go on.
Then she said,
Carry
like, if she says, then I'll let you go. Otherwise, you have to listen to that psychiatrist. So I'm like, I said, okay. So this guy was actually a 70-year-old doctor who used to write in a Sudha Weekly. So it's a Kannada weekly, right? So I did not really have much hopes, thinking that, okay, 70-year-old doctor, I'm not even sure that he would know all about it now, because a lot of things have changed from back then, right? So I was not even sure. But then he spoke to me. He heard my story like for half an hour. He got up, he hugged me, and then he told there's absolutely nothing wrong with her. Probably it's you who needs the counseling. And he sent me out, and then he counseled my mother. And then he called me, and then he just asked her like one question, that you can only get two things. You either want your daughter to be happy, or you want your daughter married. What do you want? So that's when my mother, like, okay, she took a week or so, and then she came back saying that she wants to understand more. And then I showed her a web series called The Other Love Story, uh, which is based out of Bangalore, and then it is very similar to my love story and things like that. So that's when she realized, like, this is just like any other love story that we read or hear. There's absolutely nothing much different from her. Just apart, instead of a guy, there's a girl. Like, that's exactly what I'm talking about. And then she asked me about the kids and other things. Then I told her that it's going to be okay, and I'm going to have absolutely normal life like everybody, and then I'll be happy being what I am, so don't have to worry about me. So she accepted me since then, and she's okay. And today I have a girlfriend. I'm in a relationship right now. My partner comes home, my mom cooks good food for her, and it's really really great now. So my family knows
Lovely.
all well.
That is so nice. That is so inspiring and so lovely. So tell us a little bit about your current work. Some great work going on there in terms of diversity and inclusion. Are you also involved in some of the committees? And what is it that you personally do to help the community, and in terms of make sure that things are comfortable around where you are immediately at work, at home, pertaining to the community, to make sure that everybody is well looked after and taken care of. But just before that, I would again remind all the viewers and the listeners and the attendees here of this LinkedIn Live Rainbow Professionals with me, Preeti Chaudhary, featuring our dear Kusuma, to please let your comments and questions keep coming in into the comment section of this live. Colonel Amit Verma is waiting in the wings. I will pull him up very shortly, and he would help us with any of the queries, questions, and comments that are coming up. So, I think this would be my last sort of question to you in terms of what you are doing as a contribution to the community, and then I will invite Amit also into the stream, and he will, I'm sure, have some of his own questions, and he is an ally to a new one at that. So maybe he'll have some doubts to be cleared around those. You never know. So yeah, please help us understand how you're making life easier for the members of the community around you, at home or at work. Kusuma?
Yeah, thank you. So I joined Intuit in a. I mean that story is like it's pretty different from what I've how I've hopped from one to another. So basically, there's this rise event that happened, which was the first one of the first job fairs that for LGBT. So I came through that. So I met my manager and my whole team at an LGBT job fair. So I was out there already. So I didn't really have to come into the organization, test my waters, find an ally, build the support system, and then come out. That whole process and that whole worry and that whole strategizing your conduct in the organization from point A to point B, that was like wiped off. I just came to work, and the first day I spoke about I mean when you introduce yourself, I spoke about just like anybody else. I have a partner. I come from a family of four and things like that. So basically, there was no coming out for me in an organization for the first time.
Okay.
And so when you ask me what are you doing now, I would say Intuit is such an organization where they're far ahead of their diversity and inclusive journey compared to many organizations in India, I would say. Because the managers and the hiring team, everybody is so sensitized that when I really spoke about my partner, nobody really raised eyebrows, nobody really asked me a lot of questions, and then there was no hush hush or people trying to slowly slip in their doubts and things like that wasn't there at all. Everybody was so comfortable, and I think that's a big win for me, uh, not personally, but then I would say as a society, as an organization, it's a big win for Intuit and also the society. I would say, none of the state people go through. I mean, none of the state people really go through this nerve-breaking journey of, coming out every time you are in a new space or meeting new people, joining a new organizations, moving to a different city. You don't have to go through that. You just have to come until I'm married, I have a wife, and that's it. And why do we have to go through this nerve-breaking journey every single time? We don't really have to, right? So this is the first time that really happened, and that has not come easy. They have this gold, bronze, and such allied trainings in the organizations. And I, since the time that I've joined, I quickly enrolled myself into India Pride Network, and I became part of their core member for 6 months. And then recently, I also became the co-chair of Intuit India Pride Network. So I and Karan, he also with me, we together lead Intuit India Pride Network. So for this Pride Month, we are having a couple of more events. So enough and more we have spoken. The organization has been supporting LGBT community through and through, participating in in job fairs like RISE. So that is the constant intent of hiring people, increasing this talent pool of LGBT community. So they're already doing it, and also they have these allied trainings. The employees are sensitized, right? And also there are gender neutral bathrooms. There is, the insurance policy obviously has same-sex partner benefits as well included, and also they give insurance for somebody who's, I mean, it's included for somebody who's going through gender affirmation surgery, also with hormonal therapy. Many of the organizations don't really give the hormonal therapy because that's not just a one-time thing. They need to go through that for a couple of years and things like that. So, so there are a lot of things that they're already doing. They're on their journey. But what I'm also trying to include is probably focus on trans hiring. So currently we don't really have if we hire a trans person and somebody who actually goes through the gender affirmation surgery, many of the companies don't really provide assistance in this documentation, because they would obviously need to change right from the 10th marks card till backtracking. They have to change everything. The documentation becomes slightly difficult. I've seen this happening in other organizations, so probably we can aid that. So that is something that I'm thinking that we should start providing. So there are events like we are having one tomorrow morning, actually, Tough Talks Made Easier. So that mainly talks about we have employees who are having having teenage kids, and they don't really know how to take these conversations to them. I mean, we have seen this boys locker room episode that happened, the bullying, and people don't really know how to talk to women. I mean, these days, I mean, not people, the teenagers basically misled. And if parents need to really educate them or talk to them, sex education is not something that is taken seriously in India. I mean, I don't really think that it's there in schools as yet. So I think talking about that to employees, and then creating this awareness as to how to talk to their children about sex, gender, and all of these. I think it's really an important topic, and as an organization, when we are doing this, I really feel proud about this. And also we spread awareness through, I mean, we are also participating in this 21 days hashtag 21 days ally challenge globally. We sent it across to our US counterparts and everywhere else, asking all of them to take up that challenge, constantly reminding them, and all of this.
Thank you so much. My dear friends, Dennis Wilfred and Mohan are going to be so happy to hear that there is an actual happy employee who is a champion and an ambassador for the community within and outside of work. So that was really insightful. Thank you so much for that, Kusuma. I'm going to pull in Amit into the stream now, and he will take us through the questions and comments and his own queries if he has any. So here we go. Just a minute.
Everything.
Hi, Amit.
Hello, Amit.
Hi, Kusuma.
Hello.
So please help us understand your own queries, any comments, any questions that have come, Amit, please. Over to you.
Yeah, I've been following the feed as we started at 9 o'clock. And as remains the system, we have our allies who reach first. We had Vivek coming in. We had Miti Ke Rang uh, coming in and expressing support. We had Satyendra Sahu. Anushri was there. Vishal Ghadge was definitely there from Pride Circle. Adish Dhyani, he's an army officer, a veteran, I think, and he was there to express support. Wonderful expression by him. And we had Divya Nambia. But the question that I would take now is Kusuma coming in from Tushar. Tushar is asking, Hi Kusuma, my question is you were fighting two battles, internal and external. What was your biggest motivation to fight and when?
Yeah. So thank you for that question, Tushar. So most of my internal battle was mostly probably before I really came out to my came out to all of these organizations and friends and colleagues. So after that, I've been quite vocal. I know that probably if you need help, you have to take help and you have to ask for it, and it's okay to ask for it. It's not like you have to ask for it only, then you will get help. There could be people who are helping otherwise as well. But then I understood that most of us try to go through this journey all alone, not knowing whom to trust, whom to talk to, and there's this we go through this fearful internal journey for the longest time. And the motivation for me to come out of that was it never really felt wrong as to what I'm doing, because this is my personal life. I like somebody, you like somebody as per your choice, and then you get everything that you want. Why am I not getting it? So this was a very simple question that I had as a girl of 16, 17 or 18. So that was pretty much the motivation. All of you have what you want, and why can't I have what I want? And I'm not doing nothing wrong at all. So there was this constant question that I asked, and then I said, that was also the motivation for me to come out, and then really go search for it, and then say this is it. I'm just gonna get out of this, and then have my own path, and then go my way. And I'm not going to succumb to the societal pressure. I'm not gonna do this anymore. So that was one. And externally, if I have to say that uh, going through all of this journey, I see like so many people. I know so many people currently. If you go to a pride parade, or if you go to if you go to any sort of social gatherings, you see so many people who have had similar journey, who have been having so much difficulty in conducting themselves, being themselves, just living the way that they want, and constantly facing these discrimination, microaggressions from family, from friends. And it really gets you down, it drains you out. And when we talk about even at the organization level, right, so the cost of exclusion is so high. There was a survey that was done by World Bank in 2016. So it said that the cost of inclusion in the whole world is so high that it was as high as India's GDP at that point in time. So
Okay.
1.3 billion something. So imagine that enormous talent pool that is just getting wasted just because we can't really be ourselves, and then we keep switching jobs because we are fearing, like, what if somebody finds out, and then we are not with the team, we are not part of the team, we are not our whole selves, right? So those numbers were uh, boom. So I said, why should such huge talent pool that can probably had a different journey or different perspective in life other than what you all must have had, should go wasted, right? So I mean, I can probably give an anecdote as well over here. So there was this one product that was getting developed it was an Intuit example. So some a little bit of thing what was supposed to be uploaded, and it used to appear ulta. Only 10% of it was flipped as flipped. It was appearing in flipped manner. It's because they did not really consider while developing that there could be left-handed people also who could upload it in a different manner, right? So 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 that's about it, because you don't really consider, there are other people outside as well. Now think about a fast track watch ad having an ad which is showing two lesbians and things like that. All of us will flock around to that product and then go buy fast track watch, no matter what other brand or product gives you a better thing. I mean, most of us do, because they're showing their solidarity, right? So there's a lot of productivity or uh, in your go-to-market productivity loss that happens in organizations, and I see this, and people suffer a lot. So I said that these numbers kind of gave me a motivation, I should really go out and speak more about my journey. And there are many people, and currently even there are like tons of people, they don't really come out, and then they don't really speak about it. And even if it reaches like 10 people, 15 people at one point in time, it creates some kind of impact, and that kind of creates a ripple effect. So I've seen that happening. So I think that's my biggest motivation. And then yeah.
I think, Kusuma, what you said there was that it is all about the mindset. if we are not willing to accept something, it's going to keep creating frictions, and it is going to come out in team cohesion. It will come out in the way we perceive our own teammates.
That's true.
And what you talked about that study, I think the most important part there was the attrition losses that were being done, because people could not even tell why they were leaving. They would come up with reasons, but the real reason was something that they were not able to discuss. And here a question comes in from Shiv. Preeti, Shiv is there.
Yep.
He's asking, what should organizations do to send a message to the market that they are LGBTQ friendly? What do you think, or what do you look for in a company when you decide to consider them for employment opportunities? You take it on.
Right.
And Kusuma, just to put things in perspective, Shiv is a very dear friend again, and he's the head of TA at Lowe's India. So he is asking you from a hiring perspective, in terms of somebody who's looking at hiring. It's a great question for people from the community. So please tell us, because this is going to go maybe a long way in internalizing amongst the HR who are tuned in here today, in terms of what is it that the community wants for them to come and say, hey, I want to work here and this place is comfortable for me. Kusuma, all yours. Thank you very much for that. Shiv, great question. Thank you, Shiv.
Yeah, Shiv, I would say it's a really great question. So first thing is, like, how to send a message to market that you are LGBTQ friendly. Being visible, being there whenever these events like LGBT job fairs that happen, and being present at conferences like Out and Equal, and there are many of these conferences that happen that really talks about benchmarking yourselves, or trying to do all the things that you're not yet discovered, or probably doing it maybe not intentionally, but then you've not really known that these are the things that you should probably be doing for your organization or your employees. So participating in all of these conclaves or conferences, that gives you a lot of visibility, and also coming back and sharing what you got from there across the organization, maybe in form of a blog, maybe in your social media posts, maybe sending out through an email, or some sort of channel to create this visibility in the organization that you're doing all of this stuff. You're trying to learn. You're on your journey to learn more and do more and give more, internally and also externally, through all of these channels. Being there, basically, that is really important. And also the number of probably creating this champions, LGBT community champions in your organization, to go out and speak about their journey and how are they feeling, and how did you create a safe workspace for them in the organization, and what do they feel, and things like that. So creating these champions who can go out and speak about all of this is also like really very important. I think that will definitely send a message to the market. And also nominating your employees to go out and speak in such conferences also takes you a really long way. And participating in let's say there's something called community business. So they do this D&I benchmarking and things like that. So that participation is also really important, and it also definitely sends a message to the market. And when we say what do you look for in a company when you decide to consider, mainly policies, the strong policies that you have, and how intently are you driving it across. Like when you send out a form or a link to even fill our let's say candidature to apply, over there, if you don't have in the agenda section, if you don't have they or a space where I can fill in my own gender, and if it's just binary, like he or she, or a male or a female, that tells me that probably you're not looking into all of those things very clearly. So this can appear like something which is minor, but then that those are the things that could be a big deal for somebody else, right? So looking into these policies and constantly trying to adhere to being gender neutral and being open to people with different sort of sexual orientation, and also being an example also really matters. And when we look at employment opportunities, I think also the employee benefits that you give, like I said, including them in the insurance policies, providing same-sex gender partner benefits, and also including the gender affirmation, covering the gender affirmation surgery, hormonal therapy, and all of this like really matters. Those are the things that I think usually first look for.
Okay.
I would
And
just quickly like to
amazing
add
message.
here, Kusuma, that even Lowe's India. Sorry, Amit, just 1 second, please. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Lowe's India also and Lowe's Inc. As well, also allies. So, they are a part of the 21 days ally challenge as well. So, that is really nice. It's good that an ally is asking for the people from the community to come and work for us. So, thank you for that, Kusuma. Over to you, Amit. All yours.
What I was about to say was the way Kusuma laid out the structure. I think that is what is more important. Once you have an idea as to how to go about something, then the problem is not too big. You have to break it into components that you can handle one at a time. And the most important thing, I think, there would be dialogue. And for dialogue, I would come from a very different perspective and say that challenging the existing sort of mindset, that becomes very necessary. Because when people are having a mindset and they believe they are right in discriminating, I think that's where the challenge is, that you have to tell people that they're discriminating because they have been taught that way, not because it is right. I think we are stuck in a Victorian mindset of 1800s. Just because the British left us some rules, they've been sort of carrying them as a backpack and carrying on that weight. Unless we challenge that mindset, unless we try to break out of it, it won't happen. And the structure that you gave definitely would help. We have Divya Nambiar. She is into talent management and development and also a diversity and inclusion campaigner from HSBC. She is conveying her compliments to you, Kusuma. Thank you so much for getting to the ground reality of the challenges people from the community face. So that was there. And
Thank you.
if I could close in by asking just one question from my side,
Please.
how do you get allies to be more visible? It's a very basic question because what you have covered upon is how the community should come out. What I'm asking you for as advice is how should an ally be more visible? What do you want the ally to do which will give you more confidence?
So I think one of the things that I mostly see from allies is, or somebody who would like to be an ally is probably, may sound a little bit harsh, but then the tokenism, sort of like, they would probably just put a picture, or sometime, I mean, many of the organizations do this as well. When Section 377 was struck down, all of them just went all the way out and then colored all their logos rainbow. None of them even had any, and I mean, not none of them, but then most of them did not even have a conversation around LGBT inclusion before that. They had no policies, they had no benefits, and none of this, but then they just colored it rainbow. So that is not being an ally, because there's nothing more that you're doing. It's just tokenism, right? So I think like I gave you an example before as well, it should be in your intent, and you should be there should be a period of conscious effort to even when using the verbiage and while you're talking, and also standing up for people and being visible, and like I said, if you're in the office, have something that gives a shout out to LGBT communities, saying that it could be some mug, cup, badge, or any of these things, or a small note saying that I'm an ally, or anything that your organization talks about. So being visible that way, and also putting conscious effort in your how you conduct yourself, and also very important, being standing up for against any of the homophobic comments or microaggressions, or let's say could be any kind of discriminations that happens in front of you. I think standing up is really important. So I think that's how you could be an ally.
Amit, there are a couple of comments. If you would like to please take them up, then I would close this session. All yours, Amit.
Okay, I'm just scrolling through the feed here now. Tushar, thank you for the answer. Kusuma. And we have the questions that we have taken from Shiv, which came in later. So I think, Preeti, with the feed the way it is, I think we had a good session. Over to you.
Thank you so much. And I see one here from Shiv saying, thank you for the response, Kusuma. This helps a lot. So it did make a difference. So, yeah, I would say very fruitful and very insightful. Thank you so much for being here, for being the voice, being vocal, and being visible, helping Amit and I both understand in terms of what else we can do as allies and how to sort of take these questions around allyship and everything else around it, so that if there are more people interested, then we can actually vocalize and let them know that this is the way to go forward, you know. So with this is your host Preeti Chaudhary with Amit and our dear guest Kusuma, signing off from this episode of Rainbow Professionals via LinkedIn Live, which was streamed to you via Eco Events. So until next time, which is tomorrow for the Community Connect at 7 p.m. and for the Veteran Integration Connect on Saturday at 7 p.m. This is all of us saying bye. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. See you soon.